I'm Paul Colby. Some of you may know me. In fact, probably the ones who are watching this program do know me, and that's why they've tuned in tonight. But if not, hello to my old friends as well as my new friends. Now, I don't think we have enough people who have trained hawks in Houston to take care of all the grackles I've seen. So, number one for entrepreneurs, maybe some of you need to get out there and train some hawks and confront the grackles in your area to prove what a good job you can do, and maybe you'll get hired. And so one thing that I thought about is, well, why not, if there aren't enough trained hawks around, why not just improvise kind of a hawk effect? Like, I went to the internet, I found a couple of companies that sell all sorts of interesting costumes, among them very realistic human-size hawk costumes. But I don't want to get you too excited about this prospect of going into the hawk business, the grackle control hawk business, because the good-looking one that I found here, and it is good-looking, is in the range of about $950. Now, of course, you can go down the line here and you can get some not quite as exciting-looking hawk suits, but the ones that are closer to the $25 range, it's the sort of thing you might wear to a Halloween party and they would say, well, what are you? Because not a real effective hawk type thing as far as I'm concerned. One interesting way for people to get work that have been out of work for a while is to find novel ways to rent themselves out. One man, for example, is renting his cows. It occurred to me that a lot of people don't have cows, but they do have dogs, and maybe they could be renting their dogs to people who don't know if they want a dog, so that when they take a vacation, instead of sending their dog off to a kennel, they could simply send their dog to somebody who wants a dog for a brief vacation period to kind of try it out. I'm a man who wears many hats, and from that standpoint, in fact, I think I have a picture of some of the hats I've worn lately, and just by way of illustration. And I'm going to put it in a context. My staff worked real hard this week. They put together this briefing book for me, and it's not like the briefing books that a lot of world leaders use. I used to get bothered by life's frustrations, but not anymore. My answer is, damn it all. It was very clear to me that the heat is getting to people. Look at this. What on earth are they trying to say? I've been working on that one all day long. Pope costumes only permitted in the lobby. Where I come from, you can wear a Pope costume anywhere if you can get in it. On another floor of the building, free money. Free money. People just losing their senses, giving it away. How do you explain something like that? That's not all I saw. This blows me away. Dancers must provide proof of intestinal activity. And in kind of a nutshell, this means that by devices not well understood, men become pregnant with puppies. Dogs, I mean. Dogs, canine dogs. Well, this would appear to be something that is in these people's heads entirely. In other words, you will not find many verified examples of men having litters of puppies, especially litters of puppies that they didn't want. Nuclear energy is a heater. You're heating water, you're boiling it, you're making steam. You're paying a whole lot of money to do that. So I want to ask you if this is typical of how much junk mail you get every month. Since I saw you last, I just collected some. I'm sure I didn't get it all. But this is most of the junk mail that I've gotten the last few weeks. All right, and so have you, I'll bet, and so has everybody you know, and there doesn't seem to be any end to it. So if we just want to be silly, ladies and gentlemen, instead of going on with the current energy approach, I would suggest we build some giant furnaces everywhere, every state, and have everybody turn in their junk mail and burn it. These shrewdly calculating political advisors know of all sorts of niches out there of potential voters who might be trouble, in this case for the Republican Party. And I want to explain what some of those are, because I've gained some access to some pretty sensitive files that they have. You wouldn't think of this as an important group, but let me tell you one thing about it. I've discovered after researching this topic that there are almost no microwave repair women. This is kind of a men's club here. First time around, you can see the numbers and you can see why the Republican Party would be a little antsy about letting microwave oven repairmen vote. That's just one example. For example, that may be something you hadn't thought about, transgender bartenders. Now, it's hard to, in some cases, it's hard to give an exact size for this voting demographic, but we think this one is pretty large, or at least the Republicans do. What they try to do is reach these niches. That's one example, but there are others. Let me tell you about raccoon trainers. You probably know some. I mean, almost everybody. Well, let me think about that. I don't think I know a raccoon trainer as such. One thing I found interesting here, even though there is an overwhelming support for President Obama among this group, there seems to be a small percentage who think it's 2008 and are still leaning towards President Bush. I'm not sure if it was, you know, which George Bush it was, but anyway, most of them are leaning to the president. That's bad news for Romney. Here's another one. This group is large, very large group, young banjo players. And there are also groups that you might think are small that turn out to be large. For example, you might think it's a small group. I did when I first read about it, and it turns out there are almost 500,000 artists formerly known as Prince. There is more than one reality. See, it's happening. I'm going to have to focus a lot to keep us where we are so I can continue this transmission that I think is for you folks back there, but it may be for some of those other people I've mentioned, and they're not all people. They're entities, they're beings, but people they are not, who also tune in to hear what I have to say about what's going on here. So have I laid the groundwork yet? I think so. If I sound confused, folks, it's been weird over here. I mean, it looks a whole lot the same. That's what I'm telling you. It looks a lot the same, but there are certain things that are... What? Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Well, maybe I've mentioned before, I have hearing like a dog's. I'm pretty sure that someone's there. Yes? Yes. Right, I am on the air right now. Yes? And you're receiving me? Yeah, sure. I could talk about that. The United States, yes, is in trouble, but it's not that bad. And I've got something I can show you right here. Look at this. The United States does owe a couple of $1,000s to all of its debtors out there, and we don't have to get into who they are. The fact is, the United States could just make the monthly payment. It's about $60, and we would be out of the crisis. When there's talk of cutting programs, a lot of you out there, my listeners, you're pretty intelligent and you keep up with what's going on. A lot of people out there are not so sharp. A lot of people, when they hear that programs are going to be cut, are worried about what they're watching on TV. You know, like this season, Interesting Person, or The Amazing Racist, or Gay Anatomy, American Eyeball. They say, oh my God, they're going to cut some programs. There are other ambitious programs that have been tried in the past. There's one in the Department of Energy that appeals to me, or I'm saying used to appeal to me, but the veneer has now worn off. And that there was a pumpkin energy project which was based on pushing these pumpkins, like you see in the picture here, pushing pumpkins really close together. Apparently what happens when you do that, pumpkins, they get really hot. I mean, they're sexually excited. I mean, for pumpkins to be pushed together in close quarters like this, you know, I don't know the appeal that one pumpkin sees in another. Frankly, I mean, I've asked scientists to explain to me what makes a pumpkin a true. Anyway. The pumpkins seem to get hot and bothered, so hot that scientists back in the 70s thought they could use this heat from the pumpkin squeezing process here to generate some sort of a heat-related energy source. I have discovered that there are things in the Constitution we probably never noticed or we never paid that much attention to until this became such a big deal lately. You know what I'm saying? Let me just take you on a little survey here. You may remember Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 of the Constitution, and it says that the Congress shall have the power to promote the progress of science and useful arts. And this is what I forgot, except to the extent that such actions enrage minorities with hidden agendas. Now, how could I have missed that? Honestly, I don't remember ever having to write a paper on that. The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended. Look out, here it comes, except when a sleeping populace buys into bogus manipulation by what we imagine will eventually be called a war machine, creating artificial enemies. It's starting to make sense now. I wish I could say that was all. Think about the Bill of Rights, those first 10 amendments. Look at number 2. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, including AK-47s and tactical nuclear weapons, shall not be infringed. So, in the new version of Facebook that I would put out there, it would be not your Facebook. This guy didn't finish with his application. He had his hand, which was another body part, and that is his real hand right there. And I think he was going to put his belly button picture here, but he couldn't get a very good belly button picture. So he never finished it out. If there were one application that everybody could get behind, I think I know what it is. I just don't know how to build it yet. You know those ridiculous scam letters you get about my dead uncle who worked at the bank and was the head of a petroleum company, left $62 million, and now I'm dying of starvation, and I want to give this to somebody who's a good Christian, and I found your name, and anyway. Wouldn't it be wonderful if every time an email came like that, you could hit the Destroyer app and know that somewhere across the world, on some continent, or right next door to you, because you don't know where the damn thing came from, whoever sent you that piece of garbage just found himself vaporized. I mean, not in a way that ends his corporeal existence, but maybe just vaporized. This leaves open the possibility that to deal with our other problems, we could have artificial air. Some of my inside work suggests that what's being done in laboratories right now for artificial air involves a just add water kind of a formula. And there's also, because our water is so bad, there's a drive to create artificial water, and of course for this you have to just add air. I'm not sure what song these background chicks were singing, but I certainly think that we should have more background chicks. And having said that, the other side of that coin, since we don't have more background chicks, is that we have people touting the right to bear grudges. I really don't remember much talk about that right to bear grudges. And anyway, One of the interesting books I've looked at is a new one called Whose Behind Is It? The New Species on Mount Rushmore. In any political operation, your spin boys will go out there and try to put the best face on it. I know there's even a book out there, The Lighter Side of Drone Warfare. There are iPhone tricks that people don't want you to know about, and one of the new apps, which I just downloaded, enables you to spy on the NSA. Some of these things apparently will defrost your refrigerator. I'm not sure how they do that. I'm told there's one that will go to the bathroom for you. And so that would be a good one for people who, you know, have to do extended hours of public speaking or whatnot, or spend entire days on horseback. I did a little research of my own this week just because I was so curious about daylight savings time and how we got started with it. And I turned up a couple of interesting newspaper articles from way back when, in the 1800s. I didn't know things went back that far, but I'd like to share one with you right here. Definitely interested me. The headline reads, "The Nation to Reset Clocks to Save Gasoline Films." Very odd, very odd. But look what it says here. President Mary Shackelford announced yesterday that the country was in danger of losing its helium if cattlemen and shoe designers refused to pay hush money to a Brazilian performer with short hair and bad manners who came to the United States in a speedboat 70 years ago looking for moose pictures. Now maybe in those days there were different code words for things that were going on, or maybe they just thought about things differently, but honestly I just can't get to the bottom of what they're trying to say here. So I dug a little deeper. I found another one from early 1910, I think it is. This one is about averting a hot dog crisis. Have you ever heard this before? Well, apparently, and I think this is 1910, lawmakers living in gigantic hotel rooms agreed yesterday to pay up to $785,000 each for miniature replicas of sheepdogs in loose-fitting togas in hopes of lighting up big cities and small towns without scaring the horses that make dedicated people interesting. Best special effects using cheese. And this year, the winner was a movie that's a big hit with the critics, When Memphis Was Smothered with Cheese. This is an award that is not given out every year, because there are years when, of course, no actual special effects using cheese are part of the movie business for that year. And as a matter of fact, if you go way back, I think it was about 1956 was the last time that somebody actually used artificial cheese in a movie. It was the movie about the return of the Visigoths. They took almost 2 weeks to dress down the set with actual cheese, and they began with cheddar, but then they ended up using a combination of cheddar with some sort of a blue cheese, and then they erased the blue and they got real cheese, but it all came out looking cheddar. The storyline in When Memphis Was Smothered with Cheese is what really took me aback. I thought the portrayal by Rockwan Kipple of the aging priest was very persuasive. He was the first person to leave Memphis in this movie because he didn't want to wait around while this damn cheese monster took over. And I think a lot of people can sympathize with him. I mean, who wants to hang around when cheese is coming? There's another award that was given out this year, Best Audio in Frequencies Audible Only to Dogs. And that was in a movie called Pit Stops, Bus Rides, and Bad Burritos. When it was originally in theaters, nobody noticed anything strange about it whatsoever. it didn't create a big stir of excitement until you could rent it and take it home. And when people took this home, they found that their dogs would shriek in agony, especially during the second half of the movie, when the two men are fighting and one of them drives the small bus off of the north end of the Grand Canyon. There's another award that they don't give out every year, but most years, and that's for the best low-budget costume and scaffolding. And this year, it went to a small independent film called This Time I Mean It. Big rocks that were dumped on the set modeled after Vicksburg actually dropped from scaffolding. The thing is, they didn't really weigh 350 tons, as one of the characters in the movie says. Young Tony, who is going to barber school, says at one point, these things weigh 350 tons, and there's no way that I can beam them back up to the ship. And what's weird, you know, some people pay attention to continuity in these movies. It turns out there is no ship in the movie. There are just a bunch of Visigoths running around in Vicksburg. There's almost always an award, and this year is a very prestigious award for the best performance by an inanimate object. And this year, a surprising film, The Vanquished and the Merely Troubled, took, as you know, all sorts of awards. But the inanimate object in this movie that causes such a stir turned out to be a picture of Abraham Lincoln. And what was interesting about this was that as you gazed at this picture of Abraham Lincoln that appears in the movie over and over, I mean repeatedly, you almost get the sense of it speaking lines. For example, when the gravediggers come in after having looked for the body of the picture of the person who was supposed to not have a body, and it is a complex film, after they come in and they are disgusted with themselves and they say they're going to turn in their sweaters and they're going to talk to Mr. Oompa. If you've seen that scene, it's the trailer that you see on TV all the time. Then you see Abraham Lincoln's picture looking down as if to say, you don't even have half of it right. I think that's what he's saying. Other people think that he's saying, I'm going to get together with my uncle and form a band. As I say, I've tried most of them, and I think now we've got a trend going on where you don't have craft beer so much as you have novelty beer. I mean, if you have to have apples and cherries and vanilla and God knows what all in your beer, then I think you're getting a little confused about what it is you're drinking. And just as an example, I can tell you there are some things out there that I just wouldn't recommend to anybody. For example, one of those Oregon beers, Sewer Sensation. I was tempted one night at a pub, like, you know, I hadn't tried that, and I'll tell you right now, I'll never try it again. It has kind of a whiff of memorabilia trying to be refrigerated, if you get my drift. Another one you should stay away from, in my view, is First Confession. That is more like it is more like motor oil than beer, but I understand that it works well in diesel engines. So if that's what you're buying it for, great. Baptist Climate, you know, it sounded like a hell of a good idea, or a God-fearing hell of a... Anyway, yeah, very disappointing. I mean, after the first few sips, you forgot what you're supposed to be drinking. And certainly No Panties was one that... well, it appealed to me right away, but I couldn't even drink the first one down all the way. This product does not contain genetically modified organisms. Now, I've mentioned some swill that I drank that came from Oregon, and I just want to have you focus. An organism is just one of those cute things that people in Oregon say, you know? They're quipped. The biggest new thing you're going to see, and you haven't seen it yet, but mind you, you can keep your eye on the TV and you'll see these shortly, new names, in some cases for similar products or the same product or a repackaged version of the product, but new names that are classy, you know. Frolic Butler, that's going to be very popular among a younger set who have problems, attention deficit or whatever. Lurid Twilight, I wish I knew what that was for. Aimless Tugboat is I think maybe marketed already in Omaha, Nebraska, or was it Salt Lake City or Poughkeepsie, New York, one of those places. There are still side effects, you know, for some of these products, but they're not nearly so bad, you know, as, you know, suicidal thoughts. You know what I'm saying? So in other words, once again, contents of a confidential memo, and I can't tell you how I got it. One of them advises that you should stop taking the product if there's a sudden urge to dominate your small community. Well, I have those urges all the time, and I'm not even sick, you know. Another one says that if you live in or have visited a moose sanctuary recently, you should let your doctor know. I recently tested the Microsoft Nose for News, and it probably looks pretty uncomfortable. I'll admit that. It doesn't look like it would be that useful to wear or that comfortable to wear in public, but I do have, or I did have when I was testing it. I'm a little tired now. The damn thing weighs quite a lot. It doesn't look like it, but I have two spectacular screens so that I can duplex. I can be looking at two different presentations at once. I just saw a post on my Facebook, and I'm going to share it with you, even though it's a pretty embarrassing post. Here, attributed to me, is a statement that the doctor says my hemorrhoids are a little better, but I'll probably never be able to play polo again. I got to tell you, it is true that I made this statement in the privacy of my own home, but I was actually rehearsing a part for a movie that I'm going to be in. One of the books that's often cited is called Energy Independence, but that's not really what it says. It's by this bozo professor named Bosworth Tufts, and it's really talking about energy in dependence. His thesis is that most of us, to develop our character, we need to suffer at the hands of fools, and he even says fuels at some points in the book. So I, once again, did some research. I found out what executive orders are really bothering Boehmer and the Republicans, and I'll share that with you because you haven't heard it anywhere else. It looks like President Obama just uses his office to get things that wouldn't be easy to get otherwise. And I think he's talking about those golf balls that have some kind of weird stuff on the inside, so even a little 12-year-old girl could probably hit a drive 250 yards. I've never had filet de Chardonnay myself, but apparently if you're the president, you can get it. I have no doubt it's pretty darned expensive stuff. I can't tell you how I acquired my own intercept report that the NSA did of me recently. This thing is not dated, but it's from this summer. You see there for yourself. Let's see. The subject, me, that's me, makes reference to hot date in speaking with an unidentified human male. Hot date may refer to some type of explosive carried in his pants. Well, I can tell you right now that that's simply not true. I mean, I do remember some bears that play football, but I always thought that it was named after the mammal. Maybe I just never looked at the uniform that closely. The reason that I chose this, is that in ancient Cyrillic, this little figurine here translates into the phrase, "He who occasionally considers bathing in the creek." One thing we always like to look at this time of year is what was most popular, what kind of gifts were people snarfing up at high speed. Me, myself, I picked out some outstanding body armor this year on Black Friday. I think I picked something that looks, well, understated. Have you heard the expression this year, probably more times than ever before, that somebody doesn't want to talk about the elephant in the room? Well, a lot of Americans, they don't seem to have understood that that is a metaphorical kind of a statement. They actually believe that other people have elephants in their rooms, and they don't. So to keep up with the Joneses or the Robertses or the Smiths, they had to go get an elephant for their room. And fortunately for those people, there are a lot of elephants out there. They're, the solid ones like, ceramic or marble or whatever, or the inflatable ones, which weigh a lot less, and you can move them around. In my case, even though I already had 2 elephants in the room, I added a 3rd inflatable one. And so now whenever I go out, in case there's not an elephant in the room I'm going to, I can bring my own. You've heard probably that Apple is going to be introducing in this coming year its Apple Watch, so you take your computing with you. Well, other companies are getting tired of Apple being there first all the time, and so a competitor, I think the name is Son of Samsung or something like that. Anyway, I bought one of these things that hit the market early, trying to compete with Apple. And as a matter of fact, I have a picture of it, don't I? Yeah. These things, I think Apple is going to probably do a better job. This thing is extremely heavy. As you can see, it doesn't have a face as such. There's nothing to read, and it doesn't actually tell you the time verbally. It's kind of an approximation. It gives you a shock every 15 minutes. What's going on is that college students who aren't studying are going to the beach, just like they usually do, but what they're doing at the beach is a little different than what they normally do, having a few beers and a lot of sex and getting rowdy, da-da-da-da-da. Well, things are changing these days. There's a new thing that's very popular among college students who are at the beach this year, and that is mooning dolphins. I'm not sure what they have in mind when they're doing it. As for all I know, it could be some sort of deeply spiritual experience. I was at a local pub just a couple of weeks ago, and I saw this drawing on the bathroom wall. It was really arresting to me. I couldn't figure out what it was, and it looked to me like some guy with a shovel. He was planting donuts on the beach. I talked to some of the kids in the bar, and they said, sure enough, that's something that we do these days. We plant donuts at the beach. I don't think you can grow a cash crop of donuts, so I'm not sure what they have in mind. And once again, it sounds pretty harmless to me, but I guess it sounds serious to certain agencies of the government. In particular, I'm thinking of the National Security Agency. My staff, you know how vigorously they work on my behalf, and what they can dig up things that people don't even know exist. Well, the National Security Agency apparently is keeping close tabs on this donut planting phenomenon. Why? I don't know. I think it could be something having to do with a paleo diet and needing food that's hundreds of years old or thousands of years old or something like that. The rodeo is always wanting to expand into new areas. And for example, this year, you'll notice that they've been offering these events I have never seen before. Bareback yodeling and bull whispering, the team tractor push, frog roping, and even nude barrel racing. This is an event, as you might expect, it features some bareback riding, but yodeling at the same time. And apparently this is a challenging thing to do while you're riding bareback. I think we do have some audio, even though I don't have video. It might give you an idea. Do we have that audio? Yodel, yodel, oh, oh, whoa, whoa, oh, 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 yodel. Yeah, so you can see not everyone is going to be able to do something as tricky as that. The weathercasts that I've seen lately, not only, and this is mostly on my local channels, I don't watch the big weather stations, but on my local station, not only do they give you a 7-day forecast for, you know, so that you can plan your next soccer outing or something, but they also are beginning to tell you when to expect chemtrails to be sprayed over your home.
This is the most dangerous threat I have ever seen in my entire life since last week.
So you see, when the guy reads a report with a tinfoil hat on his head, then he's pretty much telling you that he doesn't believe it either. Hey, Frog. Y'all come on and get me now. Frog? Darn little squirming thing. Come on, Frog. Get with the program. You don't deserve this. I don't know if anybody deserves this, really. One of the things that's just happened is that the governor has signed into law a bill that protects pastors. You will find even stranger explanations for why this issue of gay marriage is gaining steam right now. One of the oddest that I'm aware of is a work by a gentleman named Barnes de la Four, who believes that aliens have an agenda. I mean, extraterrestrials, not the immigrants that, you know, well, we'll probably talk some more about them later. Anyway, extraterrestrials, he thinks, and there are others who think like him, have a master plan, and somehow promoting gay marriage fits into some agenda about ripping up the social fabric. Obviously, there are cases out there already where people have pushed the boundaries of a normal marriage, mostly by marrying something other than another human. People thought, when she said, "I married a train wreck," that she was talking about a failed marriage with a husband who couldn't get it together, but it turns out she really did marry a train wreck. She married a train wreck. Rudolf Feist was one of the first people to marry an appliance, and it was a typewriter, actually. He was a writer of sorts. He didn't write his own biography for a number of reasons, but anyway, things didn't work out with the typewriter. He ended up divorcing that and marrying a washing machine, and I think an air conditioner, and God knows what all. And there's a really strange one that's probably going to wind up in court soon, because it involves a guy who is now married to a robot. But she is claiming that he is now married to another female, and he is saying, no, he's not, because it's just a machine. It's a robot. He's now married to a simulated female, but she's entirely mechanical. And as a matter of fact, it's not the robot he started with. He's had to use some spare parts to make her work out. But this whole idea of protecting pastors, you know, it it's about protecting religious beliefs, and there are other religious beliefs out there. What do I mean? Well, for example, you may have heard of the Travelers. This is a fairly small religious body, but these people, they drive around a lot, but they do not respect the authority of any sort of traffic signal, a stop sign or a real flashing light, nothing like that. They believe that their creator, somebody named Zalkic B or something like that, will protect them when they're in traffic. And so they refuse to stop unless they are impelled to stop by some reasoner inside. I think they call it the reasoner. And another religious group that really bothers me is the Church of Non-Scientology. These are some folks who, they just don't believe in any of the main understandings of modern science. Anyway, we've talked a lot now here about this issue of protecting the pastors and why they're protecting the pastors and the religious implications beyond what we know now and the marital implications beyond what we know now. But even though Texas could protect pastors with legislation, our good servants in the legislature decided, and the governor added his 2 cents, that we could not protect our pastures, those are farmlands, from being fracked upon. That's what's going on with those Republicans in their new office. And you know, they're still talking about shutting down the government. They're talking about doing it in a kinder, gentler way. So maybe this is some sort of a movement, a tiny incremental step away from the crisis mentality. For example, what I understand is if they shut down the government, they're going to start with like the government-owned barber shops, the government-owned donut shops, and then they'll shut down the State Department. I think we've got some of that on tape, don't we? Madam Secretary, would you agree with me that 2 + 2 = 4?
Only if we're talking about base 10, and the location of base 10 is classified.
Madam Secretary, can you make yourself available to testify 7 or 8 more times?
I'll be a little busy for the next couple of months. I'm setting up a bunch of Swiss bank accounts.
While Donald was doing his big talk, it's like Mr. Pram took shots at everybody.
I would make them all get Comcast or Verizon, and they couldn't fight. They would be on the phone all day to customer service.
He out-Donald the Donald. Listen to this one.
I would not have to talk tough with Mr. Putin. No, because I have a video of him going into the women's bathroom, and I would just say, this is blackmail, buddy.
You know what really gets to the Donald? And I'm not saying, you know, the crowd's getting out of control. I'm talking about the Donald. It's when they have certain questions at town halls, and we've got some audio, but let me just give you the context. This is from a very, very well-educated high school student in one of the town halls earlier this year, and it really got to Donald. Take a listen to this.
Can you provide some detail on either the financing, the mechanics, or the implementation of at least 1 or 2 of your grandiose schemes?
Very, very thoughtful question, don't you think? And what an odd voice. It was almost robotic, as if this high school student wasn't from around here. Do you know what I'm saying? In any case, Trump's response was predictable. It's the same response he almost always has, which was, go home to mommy. That's what you hear him say quite a lot at his rallies, anytime that something upsets the proceedings. Go home to mommy. Well, you'd think that's a normal thing to say. It's sarcastic, like the Donald is. But I got a tip recently from a source. It's a mole in the Mexicans Who Love Trump political group. It's not a very big group, But anyway, and I keep getting some alerts from my staff trying to update me on all of these things I'm talking to you about. In any event, Go Home to Mommy seemed perplexing to me, and when I got this tip, I followed up on it, because you remember that birther controversy surrounding the birthplace of our current president, and who was behind it? The Donald? Yes, yes. There's another birther controversy in the making, because this is the first time you're going to see this. Nobody else has it. This is Donald Trump's birth certificate. Yes, it is. And it shows something that you probably weren't aware of, that the Donald is not from around here. He's from the star system Pooler Nomast, excuse me. I hadn't been aware of this group of stars before, but there's a planet there called Mommy, M-O-M-M-I, Mommy. And it appears to me, based on the research I've done and my staff has done, that his father, Gottlieb Stan Tudor, sent him, the Donald, here on some sort of a mission years ago. Even when you try to relax in Texas and in a lot of places out west and elsewhere across the globe, it just seems like you can't keep up with the heat. But most people don't know that science has already gone further in analyzing what you can cook on a sidewalk, because these days we're conscious of global warming, are we not? I refer you to a study. This is a study by Schmeck Woodall and Largo Foote, who are in the Facilities Maintenance Study Group at Black Hole University. They have been charting what you can cook on the sidewalk in real time and projecting it into the future, where we have a warmer set of sidewalks to work with. So for a few years already, it's been possible to do eggs and nachos and even baked potatoes on the sidewalk. Last year, they added in bacon and French fries and burgers, which I imagine if your neighborhood is like mine, you've seen people doing this already. By 2018, which is not that far away, you'll be able to work on caribou if you like to grill caribou. Or by 2020, they say a small herd of cattle could be cooked on a sidewalk. But you know, really, people don't like cooking on the sidewalk as much as they like cooking out in summer. I know I really enjoy cooking out, and like most of you, I enjoy it so much that I'm having to build a warehouse next to the place here that I live to store all of my grilling supplies. And that includes, the barbecue sauce, the charcoal, the beer, lighter fluid, heavier fluid, napkins, spoons, pictures of all-time great grillers, boom boxes, fire extinguishers, whatever. It takes a lot of space to have all of your grilling equipment right there at the ready when you're ready to cook. The book is very interesting. For example, the North Lithuanian rugby team, almost all of the guys on that team have a diet that is specifically about not eating anything with 4 legs. So if you think about that, most of the things we eat do have 4 legs, but I suppose they could eat any number of birds with 2 legs, or any number of centipedes or that type of insectivoid character. And I'm not sure what it's supposed to do with you, the 4-leg abstinence, but it's popular this year, I'm telling you that. There's also the virtually French sprinter, Valery Ballyhoo. He always eats with his sunglasses on. And it doesn't really matter what he eats so much. He just thinks the food works better for him when he's wearing sunglasses. And another thing I found out from the book, the Russian wrestler, you may know Vladivsky Samasol, he only eats things that a New Zealand fur seal would eat. Cabinet departments are being shaken up, okay? Changed, modified, consolidated, in some cases, new ones being formed. Examples of this, well, in the Department of State Agriculture, which brings together two formerly different departments, I am understanding from press releases that the emphasis is going to be on having the state produce some products that are not currently being promoted heavily in the country, like some canned foods for giant lizards. I'm not sure what that means. Another consolidation is the Interior Department and the Justice Department are now becoming the Department of Interior Justice. I think justice should be exterior as well, but at least that's going to save some time or money. I'm not sure which. The Department of Health and Human Services is going to be a lot more entertaining than its predecessor. The Department of Veterans and Affairs is also going to spice up activity on both of those fronts. So a lot is changing. Ultimately, he decided to fire James Comey. And the reason that he gave for firing James Comey, first of all, he said that James had asked to be fired because he was going to go on tour with Lady Gaga, and he was going to play the conga drum. Now, you know what? I talked to Lady Gaga about that this week. Actually, James Comey never said that. He said, the only thing I can play is a cigarette lighter, so if you never use a cigarette lighter in the band, I won't be able to help. Let me tell you something about Sherman Cogg, because he's an interesting figure. He is a man who invented the grit. We now call them grits, but when he came up with the idea, he started with one grit. They became very popular, and so huge number of people in the country have a fondness for him. He was also a respected musician, and he influenced a whole lot of our current rock musicians, I think. He was a Confederate general, and as a practical matter, getting rid of his statue was something that was going to be possible because a used car lot was going to take the statue and put it in their lobby, but they eventually backed out due to the political pressures, and so the statue wound up at a church, the Church of Salsa, I believe it was. It's called Worse Than Scientology. And just read the text here for a minute. It exposes the Trump-Pelosi plan. Now, isn't that strange to see these strange bedfellows? Strange. Anyway, it involves Tesla's very secret shark repellent. It's supposed to be foolproof, and it involves people going on a diet of greenhouse gas and vodka. Now, some of the precincts that are being hidden from you are actually mobile. This is precinct 406 here, pretty close to me. It was parked on the street near me the other day. God knows where it will be parked tomorrow, because they keep moving it around. Almost all late model cars come with a voting machine installed. Well, nobody told me until recently. My staff found out some people are voting in parking lots, the ones who got the letter of notification. But I wouldn't have known this was a voting machine I was looking at. The real issue is dark money. Who's actually buying ads? Where? Like, here's an example. The Tree Surgeons for a Nice America. Now, what could sound nicer than that? Actually, the money comes from a guy whose name is Don Koo, Don Cheesemaster Koo, some call him. And his actual political arm is the Bible Belt, Bow Tie, and suspender support group. That's where all the money for the tree surgeons for a nice America comes from. Well, if you've tried to buy, you know, a washer dryer or a hair dryer or anything like that lately, you know that it's not necessarily inconsequential, the effects of this trade war. But me personally, I got a wake-up call right away. You see, I like to go down to my favorite Chinese restaurant for lunch at least a couple of times a week. Usually I find myself eating the egg drop soup, which has spare parts, and I never ask what those spare parts are. I don't really want to know. Flatus and Fluvia sing everything in Latin. See, that's pretty cute, isn't it? I mean, that is about as sophisticated as you can get without, losing your audience completely. This new album is called Ego sum esurientes da mihi vestra frumentum. Now, I know most of you haven't been studying Latin lately, and if you took Latin in high school, you've probably forgotten all of it, and you probably want me to translate for you what this album is saying, or what this particular title track to the album is saying. Well, first sentence, ego sum esturientis, that just says, I'm hungry. You probably figured that out already. The tricky one is that next line, da mihi vestra frumentum, which literally means, give me your corn. But people who speak Latin these days, and there's only, I think there's nine of those people, they translate that more liberally, and so it comes out like, I want your taco. Well, that's not the only product or service on the internet these days. Here's another one, voter purge. This apparently is being sold as a detox, but not for the human body when you have the best stomach ache ever, but instead for cleaning up the electoral process without, leaving a trail of unwanted evidence. Did you notice that right down here, like so many products, it's got a disclaimer, and that disclaimer says, your results may differ, use only as necessary, as legal restrictions may apply in a few functioning systems of government.
I had recently led a crusade to dictate public morals. I was not known for my liberal views or my insistence on the independence of the judiciary. She was drawn to my metal file cabinets and my porcelain dinnerware. We both objected strongly to the widespread abuse of three-piece bistros. She had startling new scientific evidence that the papacy was involved.